He was a designated interrogator for the U.S. Department of Defense. Hands in his pockets, he calmly walked into the interrogation room. He saw a soldier using cold water to stimulate the terrorist but said nothing. Instead, with a smile on his face, he picked up a stick nearby. The soldier thought he was about to violently beat the prisoner and tried to stop him only to get knocked down with a single blow. Everyone outside was stunned and immediately rushed in to intervene. This man was named H, and the reason he hit the soldier was simply because he believed the soldier was being too gentle with a terrorist. Just a few hours earlier, the military had summoned FBI Director Helen and H to a meeting. They had received a video sent by a terrorist named Younger. In the recording, Younger claimed he had placed 3 homemade low-yield nuclear bombs in 3 different U.S. cities, set to detonate at noon on Friday 4 days from now. Even though he called them low-yield, if all 3 exploded, it was conservatively estimated that 10 million lives would be lost. Younger was a former bomb specialist from the Special Forces, who, after returning from Iraq, had illegally obtained 18 pounds of fissile material from Russia. Because of his expertise and the authenticity of the video, the Department of Defense believed this was no hoax. Even more shocking, after sending the video, Younger voluntarily surrendered himself to the military. Now, after hours of interrogation without results, the military had no choice but to call in the FBI and H. Who would have thought that H's first move would be knocking out a soldier? While H was being restrained, Helen entered the interrogation room. She saw an opportunity to earn Younger's trust. Helen gently wiped the cold water off Younger, trying to appeal to his emotions by mentioning his wife and children. She naively believed the FBI's usual methods of coaxing and threatening would work on him, but Younger completely ignored her. Thus, the first round of contact yielded no useful information. Helen then ordered her team to split into 2 groups, one to locate Younger's wife and child, and another to investigate the trucks he had rented. Tracking the truck routes could help narrow down the bomb locations. Suddenly, her superiors called her out, informing her that H had requested to begin a new round of interrogation. In Helen's eyes, H was a ruthless monster, but authorized by higher-ups. Helen had no choice but to partner with him, even if she hated it. H ordered everyone else out of the room, then requested a soldier to bring him a fire axe. Helen had no idea what he planned to do. They strapped Younger to a chair, securing his right hand firmly to a stone slab. Without even questioning him, H immediately severed one of his fingers. Even the soldiers standing by were horrified by the brutality. To H, everyone else in the room was a fool. Here was a terrorist holding 10 million lives hostage and they were worried about humanitarian treatment. Without saying much, H ordered that a plastic bag be placed over Younger's head. He wasn't trying to suffocate him, only to make Younger realize that H had endless ways to inflict pain. H knew very well, from the start, this interrogation was a matter of life or death. Younger had mentally prepared himself before walking into their hands. Therefore, H didn't ask questions. He needed Younger to experience fear. He then pulled out a small knife and, in just minutes, made sure Younger could never have children again. Helen, horrified by these brutal tactics, was on the verge of a breakdown. She started invoking human rights, the Geneva Conventions, and the illegality of torture. She threw every argument she could think of at H's assistant, but he remained unmoved. In desperation, she went to find her superior, Jack. She demanded they arrest H immediately, but Jack argued that if the bombs exploded and millions died, laws would mean nothing. Stopping the bombs had to be the top priority. He advised Helen to wait until after the crisis was resolved to file charges against H. Helen only half absorbed his words. She still didn't realize how serious the situation was or understand why Younger had voluntarily surrendered. When she returned, she found H escalating his methods again, this time using electric shocks. Helen felt completely lost, not knowing how to cooperate or even what to do anymore. Unable to take it, she retreated alone to the restroom. A few minutes later, H came in. Helen didn't want to speak to him at first, but driven by the desire to solve the crisis, she turned and confronted him. She accused H of using torture without asking any real questions. Such methods, she argued, would only force false confessions, not real answers. H didn't argue with her. He had seen through the nature of this situation from the very beginning. He explained, normal people have morals and fear. Terrorists have neither. They exploit the world's reluctance to be cruel, using it as a weapon. In this battle, H and Helen represented logic and emotion, but the outcome would depend entirely on Helen. They returned to the interrogation room. Helen attempted a softer approach while H kept the pressure up. During Younger's break for air, Helen sat down to negotiate. She offered, if he didn't want to suffer anymore, He needed to give them some information, but Younger casually replied that it didn't matter, taking 10 million lives justified a little physical suffering. Hearing this, Helen pulled out her trump card. She told Younger his wife and child had been intercepted while trying to leave the country. If the bombs went off, they might perish too. Younger showed a flicker of pain and said he would propose a deal the next day. At that moment, H entered the room. It was clear that Younger never really took Helen seriously. While Helen played on emotions, Younger manipulated human nature itself. Another day passed. H increased the electric shock voltage, continuing his sadistic game. At that moment, a soldier informed him his wife had brought him lunch. H left, handing a remote to Helen, instructing her to press the button if Younger passed out to revive him. Helen refused without hesitation. H simply shrugged and walked away. Despite appearances, H was not a heartless monster. He just knew exactly where emotions should be placed. Meanwhile, inside the room, Younger suddenly passed out. When they tried to use the remote, Helen hesitated again, and during the struggle, the device broke. They rushed inside and unplugged the machine to stop the electric current. The smell of burnt flesh filled the air. Younger was practically half-cooked. Furious, Helen stormed outside to confront H. It was clear H had set the whole situation up, betting they would rush to save Younger. In truth, the shocks were not enough to kill him. Still, Helen didn't understand why H did what he did or what role she herself was supposed to play. After H left, she vented to H's wife, calling him a monster, not a normal human being. But H's wife only responded with a mocking smile. She explained she had been assaulted by 3 men neighbors, supposedly normal people, and had watched her family be murdered. Her story made Helen rethink everything. Before she could process it fully, H summoned her back to the interrogation room. The sight almost made her vomit. Younger's left hand had been chopped into multiple pieces. With only 1 day left until the bombs were set to detonate, H moved into the next phase. Younger's body was racked with convulsions from the pain. Helen had to massage him just to get a coherent conversation started. This time, H targeted Younger's love for his family. If Younger didn't care about his wife and child, H said, then detonating the bombs would be meaningless. Seeing Younger begin to crumble, H didn't hesitate. He slashed him again with a small knife. Younger's screams broke Helen's composure. She begged Younger to say something, anything to make H stop. In agony, Younger agreed to confess but first demanded to state his conditions. They set up a camera. Younger recorded a message for the president. Outside the room, H immediately realized Younger was only stalling for time. Still, Younger laid out 2 demands. First, no more financial or military support to puppet regimes or dictators in Islamic countries. Second, all U.S. military forces must withdraw from all Islamic nations. If these demands were met, Younger would reveal the locations of the bombs. The superior officer dismissed this as absurd. No way would the president even see these demands, but H found them reasonable. Pulling troops and saving millions of lives, why not at least try? Yet the superior insisted. There was no negotiation. At this point, they weren't even sure bombs really existed. Younger could be bluffing. Orders were given for H to continue the interrogation at all costs. They needed Younger to confirm if the bombs were real. Hearing this, Helen rushed into the room. She knew H would now resort to even harsher methods. Desperately, she promised Younger that if he gave up the bomb locations, he would be freed. Younger nearly laughed in her face. Talking about freedom inside a country known for invading and suppressing others, what a joke. Helen was left speechless and fled the room, unable to witness what came next. Pathetically, even now, she still failed to grasp the true logic of the situation. Younger's goal was never about survival or bargaining. If he had truly wanted freedom, he could have hidden and waited for the bombs to go off. Due to time pressure, even the general didn't waste more time psychoanalyzing Younger. He demanded Helen show progress fast. Helen halted H's interrogation, looking at Younger's mutilated body. Her compassion overwhelmed her again. She told him that if he could prove the bombs existed, the president might consider his demands. Moved by her sincerity, Younger tearfully confessed there were no bombs. It had been a massive bluff all along. Crying uncontrollably, Younger pleaded for H to stop. But Helen, this time cautious, asked for the address of the last place Younger had used. Younger tearfully provided it, begging her for mercy. With confidence, the general personally led the team to the address. Upon arrival, the environment matched the video location perfectly except there were no bombs. Still, Helen felt a vague sense of danger lingering in the air. Just then, someone notified them. There was suspicious activity on the rooftop. Helen and her team immediately rushed upstairs. They looked around and spotted a photograph. A soldier tore it down and triggered an explosion. That blast alone took 53 lives. Tears welling up, Helen rushed to face Younger, demanding to know why he had done it. Younger remained calm and said, "Weren't you the one who wanted to prove if the bombs were real?" Confronted by Younger's twisted, soul-piercing question, Helen fell into a deep moral swamp. She accused H of using brutal torture, yet here she was, picking up the knife herself. She had wanted to save 10 million lives, but ended up sacrificing 53 innocent people ahead of time. She had tried to be the angel protecting Younger, never realizing he was a devil from the start. Helen, devastated, was teetering on the brink of collapse. While she struggled to pull herself together, her subordinates burst in with urgent news. They had found one of the bombs. It was confirmed to be a real nuclear device, containing 4-5 pounds of fissile material, but there wasn't enough time left to find the other two. If Younger didn't speak soon, the consequences would be unimaginable. Under immense pressure, Helen went to find H. Surprisingly, H was uncharacteristically calm. He had already seen through Younger. This man would never back down. All H could do now was continue pressuring him, just short of killing him. There was no other way. As H re-entered the interrogation room, Helen had a breakthrough. Her team had captured Younger's wife. This was now their only leverage. They brought the woman into the interrogation room. When Younger saw his wife, a crack finally appeared in his calm demeanor. H used her as leverage, demanding Younger reveal the bomb locations. Younger's face twisted in pain, but deep down, he believed this sacrifice was necessary. Seeing no reaction, H grabbed a knife and moved toward the woman. Immediately, everyone else rushed to block his path. Later, H was seen washing his face in a sink, the tears mixing with the water. It showed even he was crumbling under the weight of this ordeal. If sacrificing one life could save 10 million, H firmly believed it was worth it. He wasn't just gambling with people's lives, he was gambling with the essence of humanity itself. Younger's goal was to end war, to save more lives. He saw himself as a demon, but his mission was built on faith. The only way to make him break was to become an even worse demon in his eyes. This was H's last and most dreaded option, because once he crossed that line, he could never come back. Meanwhile, Helen and the others kept demanding results while still insisting that Younger's human rights be respected. With time running out, Helen pressured H to continue. H didn't refuse. Instead, he calmly said, "Bring in Younger's 2 children." Helen panicked. She feared H would harm the kids and refused, but if they kept stalling, it would all be too late. H solemnly promised he wouldn't hurt them, only scare Younger. Since H had already killed Younger's wife, Younger now believed he was capable of anything. This would be their final chance. The children were brought in. Younger, blindfolded, was wheeled out. When the blindfold came off, he saw his 2 children sitting there in the interrogation room. If sacrificing his wife had been tolerable, his children were the line he could not cross. As Younger began pleading, H entered the room. Seeing H prepare to act, Younger broke. He started screaming, cursing, howling uncontrollably. In a frantic burst, he confessed the locations of all 3 bombs. Soldiers quickly recorded the information and dispatched teams to defuse them immediately. Helen rushed to the radio, telling H to stand down. The mission was complete. But H didn't stop. He coldly claimed that Younger was lying, that he hadn't revealed everything. Of course, H was lying too. From the very start, he had been prepared to actually harm the children. H understood that Younger had been mentally prepared for everything. This was war. As H moved toward the children, he pressed Younger for the locations of any additional bombs. Younger wept, insisting there were no more. Outside the room, tensions reached a breaking point. Determined to rescue the children, the soldiers broke down the door with weapons drawn. Now, H had become everyone's enemy, yet H only smirked coldly. Younger had just killed 53 people, including women and children, and the fools in front of him couldn't even grasp basic math. There had been 18 pounds of fissile material, enough for 4 bombs, yet Younger had only confessed to 3. The officer panicked. He ordered the 2 children brought back, and anyone who interfered would be shot. What was humanity? What was evil? What was right? What was wrong? At this point, everything had lost meaning. Helen refused, insisting that everyone had lost their minds. Meanwhile, H just found it laughable. Moments ago, they had stopped him and now they wanted him to continue. But this time, H refused to act himself. He told Helen, "If you want to be the angel, if you believe in justice, then you make the decision." Was it really the bombs that would destroy them? No. Was it Younger, who made the bombs? No. The true destroyer was the hypocritical heart, hiding behind false morality. Those who had never witnessed the horrors of war, preaching about the sanctity of life. those who had never suffered true oppression, singing hymns about freedom. When Helen finally said, "Let the bombs explode," H knew there was nothing more to say. Anything else would be disrespectful to Younger. At that moment, the superior officer pulled out a gun, forcing H to harm Younger's children. If he refused, they would kill H's own family. The absurdity of it all made H laugh bitterly. In the midst of the standoff, the freed Younger seized the officer's gun. Tension filled the room. By now, it was clear, Younger had won completely. He only needed one final act to end it perfectly. H watched the scene unfold with grim acceptance. He knew when a swordsman loses the will to wield his blade, the end is inevitable. Eventually, the police located and defused the 3 bombs just minutes before detonation. Officers cheered, believing they had averted an unimaginable catastrophe, but they didn't realize their fate had been sealed in that interrogation room hours ago. I'm a movie enthusiast. Please subscribe to my channel, and I'll see you next time.